About 3 weeks ago, I told you that the things you thought were personality traits were actually survival strategies. Roughly 2 weeks ago, I told you that healing doesn't look like the Instagram version and that the messy middle is where the real work happens. Today, today we're getting practical. Because awareness without action becomes another form of suffering. You can understand why you people please and still say yes to everything. You can know that emotional eating is a trauma response and still find yourself at the pantry or refrigerator late at night. Knowing is not the same as doing. And I'm done leaving you with just the knowing. So here's what we're doing today: 5 tools and 5 practices. Each one is connected to a trauma response from part 1. None of them require a therapist, a gym membership, a morning routine overhaul, or spending a single dollar. Not that there's anything wrong with any of those things. They can be helpful. But what we're talking about today are tools that only require 5 minutes and a willingness to try something different. I'm going to teach you each one. I'm going to walk you through it in real time so you can practice with me. And by the end of this episode, you're going to have a toolkit you can use starting today. Not next Monday, not when life calms down. You know, we're always waiting for things to settle and calm down before we actually take action to take care of ourselves. No, we're talking about starting right now, today. So let's get into it. Welcome back to Glow and Flow Radio. I'm your host, Delicia, and this is part 3 of our trauma response series. If you haven't listened to parts 1 and 2, please go back. This episode builds on everything we've covered. I will be here when you get back. Okay, quick recap for those of you who have been here from the beginning. In part 1, we named 5 trauma responses that most of us have been calling personality traits. They are people-pleasing, hypervigilance, emotional eating, overworking, and difficulty saying no. In part 2, we talked about what healing actually looks like once you see those patterns, the grief, the messy middle, and why it doesn't look like the Instagram perfect version. If you've been sitting with those episodes and using the companion resources, the Am I Healing or Performing Self-Assessment and the 7-day check-in journal, you've probably started noticing your patterns more clearly. And with that clarity comes a very natural next question. Now, what do I actually do about it? That's what today is for. Now, before I give you these tools, I need to set some ground rules because I know us. I know how we operate. We hear 5 practices and our overachiever brains go, great, I'll do all 5 every day starting tomorrow. And if I miss one, I'm a failure. Well, maybe not that strong, but I'm going to say, no, ma'am, that is your trauma response trying to hijack your healing. So here are the rules of engagement. Rule 1, these are experiments, not assignments. Let me say that again. These are experiments, not assignments. You are not being graded. There is no pass or fail. I'm not going to come and evaluate you. You're not going to have anyone, checking to see, oh, did they do X, Y, and Z? No. You are trying things on to see what fits your life, your body, and your nervous system. If a tool doesn't resonate with you, put it down. That's absolutely fine. It's all about finding what works best for you and what you can easily put into practice without causing additional stress and strife. And if a tool doesn't work for you, it doesn't mean you're broken. It means that tool wasn't for you. It isn't yours. So move on to the next one until you find what is yours and what works best for you. Now, rule number 2, start with 1. I know, I can hear my fellow overachievers out there, but we're going to start with 1. I'm giving you 5 practices today. Pick one, just one, the one that made your stomach flip a little when you heard it, the one that scared you slightly. That's probably the one you need. Practice it for a week before you add anything else. Now, rule number 3, imperfect counts. If the practice says pause for 30 seconds and you pause for 3 seconds, that counts. If you forget for 6 days and remember on the 7th, that counts. If you do it wrong, do it messy, do it while crying, it all counts. The only thing that doesn't count is the thing you never try. Rule number 4, and hear me well. This is not a replacement for therapy. I'm going to repeat this one again. This is not a replacement for therapy. These practices are powerful, true enough. They are evidence informed, and they are not a substitute for professional support if you need it. So again, they're both powerful and evidence informed, but they're also not a substitute for professional support if that's what you need. They are the daily maintenance between the deeper work. So if you are in therapy, it's this, what I'm providing today is the work that you do in between those therapy sessions. Think of it like this. Therapy is the surgery, right? These tools are the physical therapy afterward. You need both. You needed the surgery, and you needed to do therapy afterwards to fully recover. Physical therapy in this instance, in this example. Good. Let's get into these practices, okay? Now, practice number 1, I call this the sacred pause. And it maps to every single trauma response we talked about in part 1, but especially people pleasing and difficulty saying no. Sometimes those two go hand in hand, right? Here's the concept. Between every request that comes to you and your response to it, there is a gap. For most of us running trauma responses, that gap is invisible. Someone asks, we answer. Someone needs, we give. The request and the yes happen so fast, they feel like one thing. Okay. The sacred pause is you deliberately inserting space into that gap. Not to analyze, not to overthink. Well, not to necessarily analyze, because we do need to evaluate our feelings, pause to evaluate our feelings. But, we're not doing any deep analysis with this exercise, right? And you don't need to overthink anything, just notice. To check in with your body for one moment before your autopilot takes over. So here's how it works in real life. Someone asks you to do something, cover a shift, host a dinner, take on a new project, anything you can think of. It can be anything. Instead of answering immediately, you say one sentence. Let me check and get back to you. That's it. That is the entire practice, 8 words. And I know it sounds too simple, but for a chronic people pleaser, those 8 words are revolutionary because they break the automatic loop. They give your nervous system time to come offline from threat mode and actually assess, do I want to do this? Do I have the capacity to do this? Or am I saying yes because I'm afraid of what happens if I say no? I can't tell you the number of times I've used this exact practice. It's so simple. Let me check and get back to you. And that pauses the situation, puts it on pause. So you can step back and really decide if what the ask is works for you. Maybe you don't have time to bake, 3-4 dozen brownies for the school bake sale. Maybe that isn't best for you in that moment. And that's okay. Now, I'm not saying that, if that's what you want to do, of course, by all means, if you want to do it and you have the capacity and the energy and the time and the resources to do it, whatever it is, fine. But it's about giving you an opportunity to step back and take a moment to decide if that's something you really want to do. All right, so you don't have to say no. And that's kind of the beauty of it, right? Sometimes you'll pause, check in, and realize you genuinely want to say yes. And again, great. Now it's a choice instead of a reflex. It's not an automatic, yes, I'll do it just to please someone else. And then other times you'll pause and realize your whole body is screaming no. And now you have space to honor that. Give yourself that space. Permit yourself to say, let me check and get back to you. Now let's practice it now. I want you to think of the last time someone asked you for something and you said yes immediately, even though you didn't want to. Got it? Okay, good. Now I want you to replay that moment. But this time, when the request comes, I want you to feel your feet on the ground. So basically, this is a grounding exercise, a mini grounding exercise. So feel your feet on the ground, take one breath, and say out loud if you can, "Let me check and get back to you." How did that feel? Notice what happened in your body. Some of you felt relief. Some of you felt guilt. And some of you may have even felt a little terrified. Whatever you felt, that is data. That is your nervous system showing you exactly how conditioned the pattern is. And that recognition is very helpful. Because you have to have the recognition first before you can do anything about it. And now I'm giving you the tools to do something about it. The goal is not to eliminate the guilt or the fear. The goal is to act despite of it. So yes, you're going to feel, especially if that has been your go-to for months, years even, to say yes when you want to say no, or to people please. Yes, that's going to be a fear inside of you. Or you may feel guilty after you say no, but that's fine. Courage is to be fearful and do it anyway, right? You need to choose yourself even when it's uncomfortable. The discomfort gets smaller, more minuscule with practice. I promise. So to recap the sacred pause, anytime someone makes a request of your time, energy, or presence, that's when you use this tool. And then you just simply say, "Let me check and get back to you." Then you're not just saying those words, you're actually checking within yourself. And if they respect you, even if they don't, they'll have to. Because you're not people pleasing. You are not obligated to give them an answer in most cases, unless it's like, a critical situation like health wise. But outside of emergency situations, they have to honor that. And you're actually checking in with yourself. So again, you say, "Let me check and get back to you." You don't have to go into any explanations. They don't need any explanations. Keep it short and sweet. And why do we use the sacred pause again? It breaks the automatic yes. You have to rewire your brain not to automatically give in to other people's requests and desires when you actually may want to say no. It creates space between the trigger and the response. The question of your time, or to use your time, energy, or have your presence, is the trigger. And your response is the yes or no. But that let me check and get back with you is what creates space between the question, the trigger, and the response, the yes or no. And again, this sacred pause maps directly back to people pleasing and those with the difficulty saying no. And as far as a time requirement for this, it's only 3 seconds to say it, really. And a few minutes to check with yourself afterward. Or even longer. If you need to take more time, then take more time. But that gives you power. You're honoring yourself. And that is powerful for you. All right, so that is the sacred pause. Now, let's go with practice number 2. Or I should say move on to practice number 2. The 90-second ride. This one maps directly to emotional eating. Here's the neuroscience behind this. Dr. Jill Bolte Taylor, she's a neuroanatomist at Harvard. She described in her research that when an emotion is triggered in the body, the chemical process that creates that emotion lasts approximately 90 seconds. Yes, 90 seconds. That's it. The reason emotions feel like they last for hours or days is because we re-trigger them with our thoughts. The initial wave of sadness, anger, fear, or cravings, it peaks and passes in about a minute and a half. But then our brain starts telling stories about the feeling. You're always going to feel this way. You're so weak. You can't handle this. And each story re-triggers the chemical cascade, and now you're stuck in a loop. And that's those negative self-thoughts that we have to redirect, right? We can't let them take root. But basically, something happens to us. We have an emotional response. And generally, it peaks and passes in about a minute and a half. But then we keep reliving that trauma, that incident, that feeling, that emotion over and over and over again. Right? That's why it feels like, the pain is everlasting. It's just not, it feels like it just goes on forever, that sadness, that grief. Whatever the emotion is. And then you're stuck in a loop. And part of your healing process is to break that cycle. The 90-second ride is the practice of letting the initial wave move through you without adding stories to it. Feel your emotions. But we're not going to add any additional stories to it and play them on repeat. And we're going to do this without reaching for food to make it stop. without doing anything except being present with the sensation in your body. You have to let things move through you. You have to feel your emotions and let them pass through you. But again, do so without adding repeat stories to it, or stories on repeat, I should say. And definitely without adding or consuming food to make it stop. And here's how it works. You feel the urge to eat when you're not hungry. Instead of going to the kitchen, you do 3 things. Step 1, name it. Put your hand on your chest or your stomach, wherever you feel the emotion, and say, I feel blank right now, whatever that is, sad, lonely, anxious, maybe overwhelmed, whatever you're feeling. I feel blank right now. I'm going to say, I feel lonely right now. If you can't name it, just say, I feel something, and that's enough. Step 2, locate it. Where do you feel it in your body? Is it a tightness in your chest, a heaviness in your stomach, a heat in your face, or perhaps a pain in your neck or back? You need to locate it. And that's where learning to do a body scan comes in handy. And I talk more about body scans I spoke about body scans in a prior episode. And I also have information about conducting body scans that I'd be happy to share with you. But in this instance, for now, you need to locate it. Where do you feel it in your body? And then describe the physical sensation, not the emotion. This keeps you in your body instead of your head. So what I mean by that is you're not, at this step, you're not focused on the emotion any longer. You're focused on where you feel that emotion in your body. And then step 3, ride it. So what I mean by that is you're going to set a timer for 90 seconds. Breathe. Don't try to fix the feeling. Don't analyze it, and do not talk yourself out of it. Just let the wave rise, peak, and fall. Watch it like you're watching a wave in the ocean. It will crest and it will pass. And when the 90 seconds are up, check in. The urge to eat may still be there, but it will be quieter. You may still choose to eat, and that's okay. The practice is not about restriction. It is about creating a gap between the emotion and the behavior so that when you eat, it's a choice, not a reflex. Again, between the trigger and the response. So in this case, we're putting a gap between the emotion and the subsequent behavior, which is the emotional eating in this instance. And I definitely want you to eat because it's your choice, not because you're on autopilot trying to soothe your nervous system. So let's practice. We're going to do a mini version. I want you to close your eyes if it's safe to do so now. If you're driving, don't close your eyes, please. Wait until you're able to do this safely. Okay, so close your eyes. Think of something that's been weighing on you this week. Don't go to the heaviest thing, though. Pick something medium, a frustration, perhaps something you've been worried about. Now notice where you feel it in your body. Put your hand there. I'm actually doing it right now with you. And I can tell you my hand right now is on my, you could say, between my neck and my shoulder on the left side. And that's where I carry a lot of my tension, frustration. And when you put your hand there where you notice where you're feeling it in your body, I just want you to breathe. Just breathe with it for a few breaths. You're not fixing anything. You're just being yourself. And that's the practice. So you just, again, when you can safely do so, close your eyes. Think about something that's been weighing on you. Notice where you feel it in your body. And place your hand there. And just breathe. That's it. And I know it doesn't feel like enough. We want the big, dramatic intervention, right? But this quiet act of staying with yourself instead of running from yourself is the most radical thing you can do. And over time, what happens is extraordinary. The urges don't disappear, but they lose their grip. You start to trust that you can feel something without it destroying you. And that trust, that is the opposite of everything trauma taught you. Okay, so a quick recap of the 90-second ride. So I'm going to ride through the emotion. When do you use it? When you feel the urge to eat, when you're not physically hungry. How? You name it, locate it in your body, set a 90-second timer and ride the wave. Why do you do it? Emotions chemically last for 90 seconds. And riding the wave breaks the eat to numb loop. That's the goal. And this 90-second ride directly maps to emotional eating. And as far as a time requirement, 90 seconds. That's literally all it takes. And if you take, a little bit more time than that, I'm talking about the after effect. You ride the wave, and then if you want to, practice some breathing exercises, directly after to help, further calm your nervous system, um, then go for it. I have a video on our Glow and Flow YouTube page specifically for practicing breathing exercises. So you may want to check that out. All right, so let's move on to practice 3. And practice number 3 is called the 5 senses ground. This is your tool for hypervigilance and overthinking. If you live in a hypervigilant state, your nervous system is essentially time traveling. It's constantly scanning the past for threats you've already survived and the future for threats that haven't happened yet. It is almost never in the present moment. And the present moment is the only place where your nervous system can actually calm down. The 5 senses ground is a grounding technique used widely in trauma therapy that forces your brain into the present by anchoring it to sensory input. Your senses can only perceive the now. They cannot perceive the past or the future. So when you engage them deliberately, you pull your nervous system out of threat mode, and into the current moment. Here's how it works. You're going to name 5 things you can see, not just a glance. Actually look, notice the color, the texture, the way the light hits that object. For example, you can say, I see the edge of my desk. It's brown. There's a scratch on the corner. Do it slowly and be specific. Then name 4 things you can touch. Feel the fabric of your shirt or the temperature of the air. Maybe you will feel how your feet are placed against the floor. The weight of your body in your chair. It can be a number of things, but it needs to be 4 things you can touch. Describe the sensation, not just the object. Then you'll name 3 things you can hear. Not the obvious things, the layers underneath, the hum of the refrigerator. My refrigerator's humming in my office right now. You may even hear it. Perhaps you hear a bird outside, or even your own breathing. And then you'll name 2 things you can smell. If you can't smell anything, that's okay. Smell your own hand. Smell the air. Even the absence of smell is a smell. And then 1 thing you can taste. The inside of your mouth. Residual coffee, maybe. Toothpaste, it can be anything. Now, some people refer to this as the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 practice. I call it the five senses ground. I prefer that title, but I interchange them. I mean, it doesn't matter. The point is to use this exercise to help combat hypervigilance and overthinking. It's meant to ground you. So that you can be grounded in the present moment. Again, 5 things you can see, 4 things you can touch, 3 things you can hear, 2 things you can smell, and 1 thing you can taste. Let's do it together right now. Wherever you are, stay there. Don't close your eyes for this one. Okay? Name 5 things you can see. Say them out loud or in your mind. Go. Okay, now name 4 things you can touch. Feel them, describe the texture. And now name 3 things you can hear. Listen underneath the obvious. And let's name 2 things you can smell. And now 1 thing you can taste. Now notice, where is your overthinking? Where is the anxiety? Where did it go? For most people who try this, the anxious thoughts quiet down, even just slightly. Because you cannot be fully in your senses and fully in your anxious thoughts at the same time. Your brain literally does not have the bandwidth for both. Use this when your brain won't stop spinning. Use it when you walk into a room and your body goes on high alert. You can use it. You can even use it at 2 a.m. when you're replaying a conversation from 2019. Maybe not that far back, but some of us do that. Or it may be a conversation that occurred earlier in the day at work. It takes less than 2 minutes to do this exercise. And it is one of the most widely used grounding techniques in trauma recovery. All right, so let's recap. We use this when we're overthinking, anxious, like our anxiety is spiraling, feeling hypervigilant, can't sleep, feeling on the edge. And how do we use it? Remember, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 5 things we see, 4 things we can touch and feel, 3 things we hear, 2 things we smell, and 1 thing we taste. And you need to do this slow and be very specific. And why do we do this? It engages our sensory input to pull the nervous system into the present moment. And this maps again to hypervigilance and overthinking. And it only takes about 1 to 2 minutes to complete. Okay. Now, practice 4 is called the minimum baseline. And this one is for my overworkers and overachievers. I see you out there. No, I'm just kidding. But I will say I get you. If overworking is your trauma response, you already know what happens when someone gives you a wellness practice. You turn it into another thing to be perfect at. You start meditating for 20 minutes right out the gate, then 30. Then you're mad at yourself when you miss a day. And you get so frustrated sometimes that's how people end up giving up, right? Or you buy the journal, fill it out perfectly for a week, and then abandon it because you fell behind. As if you're competing with someone. Well, I have news, you are not. There's no trophy. There's no prize. So, and I can tell you before I move on to get further into the minimum baseline. Speaking of overachievers, this is a crazy story, but I went to the eye doctor, and for the first time in my life, this actually happened some months back in 2025. My vision still pretty good, but not as great as it once was when I was younger. And so I decided I'm going to go, get my eyes checked. And it's like, well, you know, um, my vision has lost some of its luster, so to speak. So, needless to say, I needed to get some glasses, which I did. And the doctor talked to me about contacts. And I I never thought about contacts like that. I have always been a little afraid of contacts, but I've never had a need to wear them, so it was never a big deal. And the reason I have this little fear of wearing contacts is because something that happened with a roommate in college and her contacts, and I won't get into that story because that will belabor this. But I had to go back in to get my trial pair and recently. And, I had to practice putting them in. And then when it came time for me to remove them and get that practice in and learn how to do that, there was another young lady in there sitting on the other side. And the tech comes over and she's like, "Oh, well, I can show you both at the same time." And in my mind, it's crazy. I don't want to use the word crazy, but I started actually thinking about, well, I'm going to learn and do it faster and better than her. And and I had to catch myself in that moment. And it's like, what are you doing? That's the recognition part, right? Literally. It's like, what are you doing? Competing in my mind, being that overachiever, literally over removing contacts. Yeah, that's what I mean when I say, oh, I get you overachievers out there and you overworkers. Because that's something I have to work at. So let's talk about the minimum baseline, which is a tool designed to help with this issue. And It's designed to be so small that your perfectionism can't ruin it. Here's the concept. Instead of setting goals, you set a floor. The absolute minimum version of a practice that still counts. Not the ideal version, not the aspirational version, the I can do this on my worst day version. Let me give you examples. The goal version: meditate for 20 minutes every morning. The minimum baseline version: take 3 conscious breaths before I get out of bed. And I will tell you, I practiced this morning, and the sun was so bright this morning. I like to wake up to sunlight. So my blinds, because I have those sliding glass doors in my bedroom, and the blinds are open because I'm not on the lower level, on the upper level. And so they're open, and the sun just shines through, if it's a sunny day. And today it was. And then I could just, you know, wake up, take in the sun, take my breaths, practice, do some breath work. It's really nice. But again, let's get back to this. So the minimum baseline is you take 3 conscious breaths before you get out of bed. That sounds a little easier than meditating for 20 minutes every morning. Not that you can't do that or work up to that. I'm saying, with us overachievers, that's what we want to do out the gate. We're laying out this extensive plan. We're going to do 20 minutes every morning like clockwork. And then when we don't, we just really, really let that negative self-talk creep in sometimes. And that's something that we actively, again, and I'll always stress this, have to work on and redirect our minds away from negative self-talk. But you just need to set that minimum baseline. Again, another example, the goal version: you journal for 30 minutes every night. Every night I'm going to, sit down and with my tea by my window and journal for 30 minutes. And while that's great, I'm not knocking it, but it may not be feasible for everyone. So the minimum baseline would be to write 1 sentence about how I feel today. That's it. So on some days, you may journal for 30 minutes. And on other days, you just write 1 sentence about how you felt for that day, and that's okay. Another example, the goal version of it: I'm going to exercise 5 days a week. I'm not going to miss a day during Monday through Friday. The minimum baseline version, though: stand up and stretch once between meetings. Mine is get up and walk while I'm at the office. At least once every hour. I'm not going to sit there for hours on. Now, I'm not going to say I haven't done that, but I can tell you, when I just sit there for hours and hours working, I generally get stiff. I know other people out there know what I'm talking about. And I find that, I need to get up and move. Even better is when the weather is nice and you can go outside and walk a little bit in the sun. Up that vitamin D, right? So another example of this: The goal version: stop emotional eating completely. Yes, this is a great goal, because emotional eating is kind of eating on autopilot, right? When you break that cycle, your eating becomes a choice. And you recognize why you're eating, and that you can do other things to soothe your nervous system. And over time, emotional eating becomes a less frequent occurrence, or at least, that's the ultimate goal, right? But Rome was not conquered in a day. And even if you are able to, at some point in life, stop emotional eating, there may come a day when you do it again, but it'll just be less frequent, fewer and far between each incident. Everyone's progress is different. Everyone's healing journey looks different. But for us overachievers, again, I'm going to stop emotional eating completely. I'm going to stop it within, let's say 90 days. Now, come on. But the minimum baseline version: before I eat, I ask myself one question: what am I feeling? That recognition, right? Then we have to recognize before we can do anything about it. Recognize, analyze, and act. You see the pattern? The minimum baseline is not about lowering your standards. Not at all. It is about removing the excuse not to start. Because the biggest barrier to healing is not lack of knowledge or motivation. It's the belief that if you can't do it perfectly, you shouldn't do it at all. And that belief is the overachiever trauma response running the show. But here's the secret. On your good days, you'll exceed the baseline naturally. You'll take 3 breaths and then meditate for 10 minutes because you felt like it. You'll write one sentence and it turns into a full page. The baseline is not a ceiling, it's a floor. Hence, baseline. And having a floor means you never have to start over because you never fully stop. Right? I'll be really transparent with you. As someone who has run multiple businesses while working a full-time job, I know what it's like to turn everything into a productivity metric, including healing. The minimum baseline is the tool that finally broke that cycle for me, or is breaking that cycle for me. Because it took perfection off the table and put presence in its place. So here's what I want you to do. Think about one practice, any practice that you've tried before and abandoned because you couldn't keep up with it. Now shrink it. Shrink it until it's almost embarrassingly small, until your overachiever brain says, that doesn't even count. That is your minimum baseline. And it counts more than anything you've ever started and stopped. So let's recap the minimum baseline. When do you use it? When you want to build a new practice, but you keep quitting because it's not enough, or you feel like you're not doing enough. Okay, then you set a minimum baseline and work from there. How do you use it? You shrink any practice to its smallest possible version. Do that version every day. Why do we use the minimum baseline? It eliminates perfectionism as a barrier. You can't fail at something this small. And it maps to overworking, overachieving, that kind of all or nothing thinking that many of us struggle with. And the time required to do it, well, it's really whatever your baseline is. It could be 5 seconds, it could be 5 minutes, it could be 15 minutes. It just depends. All right, so let's move on to practice number 5. This is the last one. And the most important one. All of them are important, but this one is definitely the leader of all. It's called the compassion script. This practice maps to all 5 trauma responses, because underneath the people pleasing, the hypervigilance, the emotional eating, the overworking, and the inability to say no, there is one thing that all have in common: a belief that you are not safe being yourself. Every trauma response is, at its core, an attempt to be acceptable, to be good enough, to be safe. And the voice in your head that drives those responses is usually harsh, critical, relentless. It says things to you that you would never say to someone you love. Again, we have to redirect those negative self-talks that we have with ourselves. The compassion script is a practice of replacing that voice, not silencing it, not fighting it, but offering it a different script. The way you would talk to your best friend, the way you would talk to a child you love. Here's how it works. When you catch yourself in a trauma response, any of them really, you say 3 sentences to yourself. The same 3 every time. Repetition is important. That's the reason you'll hear me use repetition quite a bit, because it is very, very important to get to rewrite things in your brain and get the correct information imprinted. You are literally rewriting neural pathways, so keep that in mind. Sentence 1, I see what's happening. This is acknowledgement. Everything begins with an acknowledgement. You are naming the pattern without judgment. Not, oh, I'm doing it again, but, oh, I see this. I recognize this. Sentence 2. This is a survival response, not a character flaw. This is context. You are reminding yourself of the truth we established in part 1. You are not broken. You are responding to old wiring. There's a difference there. Okay. Sentence 3. What do I need right now? This is redirection. Instead of shaming yourself into different behavior, you are asking yourself, maybe for the first time for some of you, what you actually need. You, not your spouse, not your kids, not your girlfriend, boyfriend, parent, boss, coworker, best friend, sister, brother, aunt. What do you need? Not what everyone else needs. You. I can't stress that enough. 3 sentences, that's all it takes. It's, I see what's happening. This is a survival response, not a character flaw. What do I need to do right now? Let me give you an example. You're at work. Your boss asks you to take on another project. You hear yourself saying yes, even though you're already drowning. You walk back to your desk and you feel the resentment building. Now, your old response may have been, and this is, when I say old response, this is to yourself. Why do I always do this? I am so weak. I can't even stand up for myself. And then you may eat lunch at your desk, something heavy, something comforting, and you don't even taste it. However, this is your new response with the compassion script. And this is again you having a dialogue, an internal dialogue with yourself. I see what's happening. I said yes when I meant no. This is my people pleasing response, not a character flaw. What do I need right now? And maybe the answer is I need 5 minutes alone. Or you may need to text a friend, take a walk. Or honestly, maybe in that moment you need your comfort food. Again, we can't break that cycle overnight, and we can't beat ourselves up if we feel like we need our comfort food in that moment. Healing takes time, and don't be hard on yourself. This is about being compassionate with yourself. But the difference is if you decide to eat your comfort food for comfort, now you're eating it with awareness instead of shame, because shame perpetuates the emotional eating cycle. And eating with that awareness changes everything. The compassion script works because it interrupts the shame spiral. And shame, sis, shame is the fuel that keeps every trauma response running. Cut the shame, and the patterns start to loosen. Maybe not instantly, but steadily, in a way that actually lasts. And that's the part right there. Lasting effects. not a temporary fix, but a lasting effect. So let's recap the compassion script. When do you use it? Anytime you catch yourself in a trauma response, and it applies to all five trauma responses that we thought were personality traits. How do you use it? Just the three sentences I mentioned. I see what's happening. This is a survival response, not a character flaw. What do I need right now? Why do we use it? It interrupts the shame spiral that fuels all trauma responses. We are removing that shame. It's going to take time because it's been ingrained for so long. But remember, step by step, day by day, and every small step counts. And again, this maps to all five trauma responses, so you can use it for any of them. And it only takes about 15 seconds or so. Okay, so let me lay it all out for you so you can see the full picture. The sacred pause is for when you say yes on autopilot. The 90-second ride is for when you want to eat your feelings. The five senses ground is for when your brain will not stop spinning. The minimum baseline is for when perfectionism is keeping you from even starting. And the compassion script is for when the shame spiral comes for you. And it will, it may. But now you have a tool to help deal with that, right? 5 tools, all free, all portable, all yours. And here's the thing I need you to understand. These practices are not going to transform your life in a week. They are going to transform your life in the accumulation of weeks. They are the micro choices we talked about in part 2. The ones that don't feel like breakthroughs, but add up to a completely different way of living. You are not going to do them perfectly, and that's okay. Be gentle with yourself, be compassionate. You are going to forget sometimes. You are going to fall back into old patterns at times. But once you acknowledge that, you redirect and try again, right? You already know what to say, right? I see what's happening. This is a survival response, not a character flaw. And what do I need right now? The compassion script catches everything, even itself. I built you something to carry these practices with you. It's called the Rewired Toolkit. It's a set of practice cards, one for each tool with the quick reference, the steps and space to track when you use them. You can print them, save them to your phone, or keep them wherever you'll actually see them. I'm offering this at no charge to you because I want you to be able. I offer these tools, many of them at no charge it all to you, because I want you to have the tools you need to help you through this. And you'll find a wealth of information at the Glow and Flow Holistics website, and that's at glowandflowholistics.com. So I strongly encourage you to check it out. It goes deeply into the holistic wellness pillars, because the the whole point is to heal the whole self, the root cause of our um, emotional eating, anxiety, depression. And we do so, we approach healing holistically. The link for the Rewired toolkit is in the show notes. So I encourage you again to take advantage of that. And I want to take a moment to acknowledge what we've done over these 3 episodes, because it's not small. In part 1, you saw yourself clearly, maybe for the first time. You named the patterns. You realized that the things you thought were wrong with you were actually things that kept you alive. And in part 2, you sat with the grief and the mess of what healing really looks like. You stopped measuring yourself against someone else's highlight reel. You gave yourself permission to be in the middle. And today, you picked up tools, real usable, straightforward, start tonight tools for interrupting the patterns that no longer serve you. That is a complete journey: awareness, understanding, action. Again, awareness, understanding, and action. But I want to be honest with you. A journey doesn't end because a podcast series ends. You're going to wake up tomorrow and the trauma responses will still be there. The people pleasing will still whisper. The pantry will still call your name at night. The overachiever brain will still try to turn rest into a performance, right? And that's okay, because now you have language, you have tools, and you have a community of women who are listening to these same episodes and doing this work alongside you. You are not alone in this. I started Glow and Flow Holistics because I needed space like this, and it did not exist. And specifically a space for plus size women, although all women are welcome. But, I'm talking specifically to my plus size ladies who are done with diet culture and ready to heal for real. And again, it's not about size really, but we need a space for us to heal. Because you have to heal what's driving the emotional eating. And a diet is not going to heal your trauma. That requires a different type of work. And that's where a lot of fitness gurus and diets fail us. I mean, yes, eat less, move more. You may lose the weight, but is it lasting weight loss? Because if you are an emotional eater, and you're constantly being driven towards your comfort foods, then you regain the weight and the cycle begins again. So that's why we don't do diet culture at Glow and Flow Holistics, because we need to heal our trauma first, deal with that issue, and then build from there holistically, sustainably. And it's a space where emotional eating is not seen as a weakness. Rest is not seen as laziness. And your body is not the enemy. We want to honor rest, honor our bodies, and we can do so together. If this series meant something to you, do one thing for me. Share it with one woman who needs it. One, that's all. Because somewhere right now, there is a woman calling herself a people pleaser who doesn't know it's a trauma response. That's why I say, yes, I wanted to make something for my plus size girlies, but this is for all women, because we all deal with people pleasing. Well, I won't. Maybe I shouldn't say all of us deal with people pleasing, but you know, people pleasers are not specific to a size. That's a better way of putting it. So, it's not specific to any size. Anyone can deal with people pleasing, overachievement, perfectionism, hypervigilance, even emotional eating. Because emotional eating doesn't always equate to being plus size, right? It can, if you're constantly leaning on comfort foods, and especially those simple carbohydrates and things of that nature, to soothe yourself and make yourself feel better, that can lead to weight gain. But again, turning to a diet is not going, it'll be a temporary fix. We have to work on healing the root cause of our trauma response. There is a woman, perhaps, standing in front of her refrigerator at midnight, hating herself, who doesn't know that her body was the solution, not the problem. We can rewire our brains. We can break the emotional eating cycle. We can eventually stop the people pleasing, calm our nervous systems when we're feeling hypervigilant and on edge. And again, not overnight. It takes time, but we can do it. And again, be the person who sends another woman this episode who needs it. Be that person. Share this information. Be a part of the community. Be the one who says, hey, listen to this. You are not your trauma responses. You are the woman underneath them. And she is worthy of every bit of healing that's waiting for her. Thank you for walking this journey with me. I really mean that. Thank you. Keep glowing, keep flowing, and keep healing from the inside out. This is Glow and Flow Radio, and I will see you next week.